How's it going, Dave from Comic Book Investments? So, nothing back from CGC. Got nothing. Nothing to show you, really. Well, I got this stuff over here, but this stuff isn't from CGC. This is from a collection. Bunch of random different collections, bunch of random different things. Some books I've had lying around, but nothing back from CGC. Yes, they're a little bit behind, but they also had that hurricane that came through, so not that big of a deal. I'm getting stuff in soon, but this is kind of a first. Never had a week go by where I didn't get anything back from CGC. Sometimes I think like last week I had like one box or something, but normally I get like 3 boxes. So this is everything. This is everything that we put up on our website, collectorscomics.com. Everything we got. So I'll show you everything we have. So no surprises. You're not going to go on there and find anything that you haven't found before or haven't seen in this video. But nothing back from CGC. But, oh well. It is what it is. All right. First we got this. And you'll notice that a lot of these, you know, they might have some old cases. I think there's some CBCS and PGX in here as well. So a little bit of everything. All right. Marvel Premiere number 38. First comic book appearance of Weird World. I'm going to tell you the truth. I have no idea what that is. I don't know what Weird World is. It looks like some kind of fantasy thing that was like really popular in like the 70s and 80s. That was, you know, that kind of thing. Anyways, $79. Let's see what we got here. Star Wars Legends number 3. First appearance of a ton of people. The first Force ghost of Luke Skywalker. And first Ronan Fell. I don't know. Don't know those characters either. 129. So again, I'm not going to have any numbers like, oh, what did I think it was going to get versus what it actually get, because these just came as they were. Come as you are. Da, da, da. Nirvana. Yes. I don't know how many of you guys out there listen to Nirvana, but nonetheless, now the song's stuck in my head. Come and you. Anyways, Fantastic Four Annual number 6 came back. Didn't come back at all. I don't know why. I'm just so used to saying that. But it's up for $249. Man, this book dropped off like a bunch. Oh, well. Here's that 5 for Fighting that was sitting over in the corner. If you watched my, one of those videos I did, it was sitting over here. That's what this is from. $11.49. This is the first appearance of Peacemaker, in case you didn't know. This book was pretty much worthless. Oh, that's what it was about me talking about how some books can get more valuable because of TV shows and stuff like that, because it's based off of characters. And if people that don't know the character exists, you know, like, let's be honest. If you went back 10 years ago, how many of you knew who Peacemaker was? Maybe some of you did. You're like, oh yeah, because he was in DC here and there. But the reality is not very many people knew about Peacemaker, or maybe you just saw him on a picture or on a comic book once or twice. This book, pretty rare. This is basically like the sketch version. It's like finished version, which is so weird. They did a finished version of this. Do they have a finished version of like every, like 378, 379, all that kind of stuff? Or do they just randomly pick which ones they want to push over in a different country? I don't know, but if they have a finished version, I imagine they have a country version for every single comic book then, right? Or at least almost every single country. Anyways, this one's pretty rare. $17.99, pretty expensive. 9.2, right? 9.2. Yep, 9.2. Planet Comics number 65 in a 6.5, old golden age. $32.99. I believe there's only, I think this is the second highest grade. Here we go. We got a PGX. Don't see these too often. Spider-Man 2. Third appearance of Spider-Man. First appearance of the Vulture. $2 $2,999 for PGX 4.0. And if I had to guess, if you wanted my expert opinion, what I think it would get if you sent it into CGC, or if this was a CGC equivalent, I would say it's a 3.5. Maybe get the 4.0. I don't know. Maybe, it's hard to tell because it looks like there's like this piece down here that may come off or is barely attached. So that's kind of like what I'm hesitant of, like cracking this out and sending to CGC, because I'm like, this piece down here, you can't really tell, but it's like the size of a dime. Looks weak, and I have a feeling if I rip it open, it'll just like float away, and then it's like, oh great, now there's a piece missing. Here we go, a little older case. A lot of times these older cases, like you can't really see, but down here, the new cases are glued great, but now they just put like a little dot of glue, and so these things would always crack open, so they're always like loose on the sides, like, so it's almost like it's just held together at the joints. First appearance of the Lizard. This was not this book, this particular book, but issue 6. For some reason, I liked the Lizard when I was a kid, and I worked really hard to get this book. This was my oldest Spider-Man comic I had as a kid, issue 6. It was probably a 3 to 4 now that I think about it, but I had this one. I don't know why I liked the Lizard for some reason. I just did. And yeah, I worked really hard for that. It was actually, I got this before I ever got any Hulk 181s. This was like my first big purchase when I was a kid. I don't know, I was probably like 8 when I got that book, somewhere around there. Let's see what it's listed for. $32.99. And for those who don't know, my dad was a comic book dealer, so I would work for him and get comics instead of money. And pretty much I was always working for my dad. The rest of my brothers, not so much. Only when they had to. But me, I always worked and tried to get comics. So I had a comic collection, and that's how I started my own business. All right, number 30 in an 8.0, $44.99. And we got here, we got a restored comic. It has small color touch and cover trimmed. First, Gwen Stacy and Harry Osborn, number 31, $329. Then we got Spider-Man 21. They're not really in order. $459 and a 7.0. It has a crack on the back, like about 3 inches. Once again, I got these out of collection. Spider-Man, what is this? What book is this? 36, 7.0, $279. It's crazy. You know what? I will say, after doing, because if you guys don't know, I run auctions on my website, collectorscomics.com, and we're doing our 4th auction. Man, we're getting towards it's almost about to start. Starts November 1st, I think. So we're getting towards the end, trying to get everything up. But after going through, because I get so many, just tons and tons of stuff, I get a lot of cases from CBCS, from CGC, PGX, EGS. I haven't got any Vault or Halo, but you know, the main ones. I will say, and also CGC's older cases. CGC's new cases are by far the best. Like, it's not even a contest. Like, not at all. The inside sleeve, the case around it. You could make some arguments of their older cases not that great. Like, I always thought they were good, but now that I see like the newer cases and I deal with the newer cases, when I get an old case like this or even older, I'm like, yeah, they're not as good. The new cases, they're top notch. All right, Spider-Man 39, 6.5, $649. Spider-Man 67, cool cover of Mysterio, 9.0, $229. Then we got this Spider-Man 71 in a 9.0, $3.29. I had that book as a kid. I had a lot of Spider-Man too. I had, I didn't really have any of the big keys as a kid. I mean, I had that 6, but I had all like these, all in the, the 90s, the 80, issue 80, 90s, 70s, stuff like 60s, stuff like that. That weren't really keys. Number 93, 80, 149. I just got in Wizards number 1 from 91. I think it was 91 or 90 or 1990. And I was looking through it, and it's funny. It's like, oh, I want to see how much, because during that time I remember it. It was like all about, like, I remember really popular books were like first Venom, first Carnage, and stuff like that. And I go to look through it, and I'm like, this came out before Carnage ever existed. But I was looking at the prices. The price was pretty funny. Fantasy, they didn't have a grade. It was just the price. Fantasy 15 was $5,500. So I don't know if that's a good or a mint. I am assuming it's mint. Everything was in mint. It's really interesting to see which books people thought were going to be popular, but turned out not to be. So for example, Spider-Man 298, first Todd McFarlane, and Spider-Man 300, both $35. But we all know that now a 9.8 of Spider-Man 300 is worth vastly way more, like thousands of dollars, and a Spider-Man 298 in a 9.8 is only worth like a couple $100. So it's interesting to see, that dynamic. A Hulk 181 was $240. Spider-Man 1 was $4,000. I just looked at like random ones. They didn't go back to the Golden Age. There's only Silver Age on up. First Gambit, $266. X-Men 266, $3. I don't know what that thing was new. It was like $1 something, $1.25, $1.75. So it doubled in value. All right, moving on. Spider-Man 137, 80, $99. Some Black Magic number 1, $45. What do we got here? Blade and Morbius, 92. This is a newer case. It's when you pick it up, it's like sturdy, it's stronger. Fear 24, $279. And if you guys don't know, they delayed the Blade movie, I think like a year or something like that. They can't seem to get a director and a writer, and it's like, oh God, here we go. It's never gonna happen. But they kind of needed to happen, so they pushed everything back. Green Lantern versus the Flash, restored, it's trimmed, meaning someone came with a blade and cut the tops and the sides. This is all 3 sides. Yeah, all 3 edges trimmed. $4.99. Funny thing about the Flash, that fool, Ezra Miller, he is facing 26 years to prison because he's a moron. So, which I don't really mind. I never liked him as the Flash, and I'm glad he's gone. And if this movie does really well, they're not bringing him back. They'll find someone else, a new actor to replace him. That guy is a mess, just a complete mess. He's a moron. He makes me mad for all the people that could have done that role. Done it better, number 1, way better. But of all the actors that are out there like starving, trying to get work, and they chose that guy, and he's a complete douchebag. So, and if you don't know what he did, he's done a million things. He broke into houses. He threatened to kill people in real life. He hung out with an underage girl, not just, she was 17 and I was like 23 or something like, no, she was like 14. And he would like have her come over to his house and stay there. Parents obviously, whatever, they let that happen, but things like that. But still, it's like, what kind of, I think he was like 25 at the time, she was like 14 or something. And I'm like, gross. Why? And it's not like they're like old family friends or something like that. And he's just helping out. They literally met at who knows where, just a random event or something like that. And they kept in contact. It's like, why are you Gross. So he's facing a bunch of charges like that, like grooming and I don't know what the hell. It's just kidnapping, like all sorts of stuff. I mean, realistically, he'll probably serve like a little bit of jail time or just probation, but complete douchebag. Yeah, what a terrible person. So the Flash movie's kind of doomed, but they already sunk $200 million into it. What are they going to do? Not release it? So I'll still go see it because I have the Flash. I can separate the artist from the art. All right, special Marvel edition, 15, 4/5/2/19. That's a question for you guys. Can you guys separate the art from the artist? For example, can you listen to Michael Jackson after knowing what kind of person he was and what he did to kids? I watched that documentary. Can you watch a Bill Cosby stand-up or clips of stand-up or whatever? Can you? I can. After I watched Neverland or whatever is Finding Neverland or whatever that documentary was on Michael Jackson, I was like, for some reason, I was like, I want to listen to his music. I haven't heard his music forever. And then I started listening his older stuff. And I was like, man, he has a lot of good songs I totally forgot about. But yeah. And songs that I never heard before. Submariner 19, 159. So, yeah. I don't know. I can. I think most people can because Michael Jackson is still like, I don't know, in the top 100 most currently streaming artists currently. And he's been dead forever and he hasn't made music for forever. And so I think a lot of people can't separate the art from the artist. What am I even looking at here? Oh, Spider-Man 9. And a 4-0. 1359. First Electro. Jamie Foxx. What do we got here? Another Spider-Man 39. 8/5. 1489. Sorry, I went on a rant. I occasionally do that. Things pop in my head and I just keep going. All right, Spider-Man 46. 539. Spider-Man 49. I had this book as a kid. 8/5, 359. And then, for the best book of the batch, at least in my opinion, not the most expensive one, but I don't really get this book very often. I've had it before. I'm sure I'll have it again. We got here, low grade, but yes. Batman 7 in a 1/8, but still. The cover's mostly there so you can see everything. I mean, most of the reason why it's like a 1/8 is because like it's missing chunks on the spine, but at least like most of the cover is intact and you can see everything. $2,000 for this book, but very cool. I don't get this very often. I used to get old Golden Age stuff all the time, and now it's like, it's just so expensive, so expensive. Golden Age still holds its value a lot better than moderns, obviously. You're not going to see this book drop by like 50 to 70 to 80% like you see on other videos on my channel that I talk about it. The reason why is because they're so rare. That's why. There's no one, if this book all of a sudden popped off, if this was like 2000 and say it went up to $10,000 all of a sudden, there's not going to be all of a sudden a bunch of people when I'm like, oh, wow, it's really high. Let me search through. Oh, what do you know? I have 10 copies. Let me sell them all. That's the problem with like modern comic books is if a book ever becomes expensive, then people will start noticing about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll sell my 20 copies that I have lying around. And so it's supply and demand. So they flood the market with a ton of stuff. I remember when Giant Size X-Men was going up quite a bit. I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, why is this going so high? You can and I think I was doing it live too. And I was like, at any point you could like pick up one, blah, blah, blah. Why are they sitting at these records, right? And so then I looked on eBay and I was like, normally at any given point there's hundreds. And I remember looking and I'm like, there's like 10. Like, what is going on? Because supply and demand, people were buying them up at that price and there's not enough to for people. Either they're holding them and they didn't want to sell it, or they're just people didn't have a bunch of copies lying around. There's so many times I'll get collections of like modern collections, and it'll be someone with like 50 copies, all in perfect shape of some modern book. You know, for whatever reason, I don't know why they have so many copies. Maybe they bought out a comic store, or they just happen to collect all these copies. And that's the thing with like new books. There's just so many of them, and they're all in perfect shape. So that's why new comic books will never really ever be worth much. Sorry to say. The only way is if somehow a character really pops off and it happens to have like a low printing, like Walking Dead #1. Obviously that book popped off because of the show, but to begin with, I believe it only had a print run of like 7,000 to 10,000, if I'm not mistaken. And that book came out in 2001. So yes, there was still people buying, and then like CGC didn't really exist, so people still had to keep them just, you know, normal in like a bag and backer board, and people more likely read them. The problem is now you come out with a book like today, there's already tons of comic shops, tons of comic people that literally just order like a stack of 10, send it straight to CGC, and they all come back perfect 9/8. And there's a lot of people doing that. It wasn't as common back in 2001. And I mean, even like Ultimate Fallout 4, like yes, CGC was around, but they weren't nearly as popular, especially on more newer books, how they are now. But again, that had a print run of like 80,000. So it's still like you look at the census, you're going to see stuff that are like a 6.5 of a Ultimate Fallout 4. You're never going to see a 6.5 of a current book now, because most people literally just, they all have 9/8 and they send them in. They don't read them first and then send them in. And if they did, they usually keep pretty good care of them. So that would be like, you know, the most current, expensive modern book that has a normal size print run, right? I'm not talking about a book. It's like, oh, I only had like 5,000 printed or something like that, or some variant that's, you know, rare, things like that. So Ultimate Fallout 4, but even that's going down. You just have, there's lots of people that have like tons and tons of copies. You just got to make sure that there's enough demand to make that supply go to where it is. And, you know, Miles Morales is a super popular character. They had that movie out, has a video game, even on that cartoon a little bit. So yeah, that's like the only example I can think of, but that's like probably one out of 10,000. You basically, it's like a penny stock. And then you could say, well, you know, Ultimate Fallout, you know, 3 or 2 or 1, those aren't like first appearances, so you'd bet on first appearances only. Even then, it's like 1 out of 1,000 or something. Like if you think about it, if you take every first appearance, because when a book first comes out, you have no idea if this character is going to be big or not, because it's out of your hands. It's up to the writers, the creators. Does this character actually, you know, become popular to the point where it can be on movies, TV shows, stuff like that? You never really know. And that takes like years and years and years. Like if you think on the examples, and, you know, you got Ultimate Fallout 4, so Miles Morales, but he's just another Spider-Man. Like Walking Dead #1. I'm sure there's ones in there that, you know, are like decent, but I'm talking about like really took off. Yeah, so yeah, it's a super rare for a modern book to pop off. That's why it's better to get Golden Age, right? If you want to more protect your investment, but they're slower movers. That's the downside. You're not going to pick up a Golden Age book for say $100 and it turns into $10,000 or like $1,000 in you know, a few years. That can happen with a modern book, but as fast as it goes up, as fast as it goes down, because it's based off of like FOMO and stuff like that, and getting it out of the gate. Sorry, I've been ranting and rambling too long. Have a good day.